All right, so first of all, I know most of you in here. I'm Bailey Short. I'm a full-time fly fishing guide down south in Hopedale, Louisiana. Um, and I used to work up at the Orvis store up here while I was in college. And yeah, I've been guiding for about 10 years, full-time now for about 5 or 6. And um, got involved with the American Saltwater Guide Association, I'd say about 3 years ago, is kind of just, I was honestly on a random Zoom call doing a favor for a buddy, like listening to a guy talk about conservation and realized we really didn't have a voice down here. That was truly a unifying voice for people that are interested in conservation in the state. And we got in touch, and that was kind of the beginning of the saga that has started. So I'm going to talk a lot about conservation in the state and what the American Saltwater Guides Association is doing down here with recreational anglers and guides alike. And I'll talk a little bit about, saltwater fishing and what I do down there. Hearing you guys talk about fishing reports, I've been fishing every day up until yesterday, the last week. And just like an on the water report, I guess I'd say is, I fish out of Oakdale, Biloxi Marsh, like I was saying. We have seen a few fish kills. We have a lot of deep water, so a lot of those fish got out. Definitely had quite a bit of sheep's head mortality, it looks like, in that area. Definitely looks like Port Sulphur, Grand Isle, Fouchon, all that had a lot more kind of widespread issues, shallower marsh. I did hear some reports in like the Delacroix and the Biloxi Marsh, like interior, it was pretty extensive, the redfish hills, just because shallower water, they can't get out of that stuff. And I'll touch on that some more later, but on the upside, there was still plenty of fish. My clients caught fish this past week and we caught some good ones, so there's still some fish around. It's not all doom and gloom, but this place does manage to find a way to prevail, it seems like, against all odds. So let's talk a little bit. Anyway, ASGA is the American Saltwater Guides Association, like I said. They're all about science education and advocacy. So they do a lot of, basically, the big thing that ASGA does is they get involved with the local state departments and do science along with the State Department to help supplement anything they got going on, which I'm going to talk about more later. But basically, we get into the State Department and we say, all right, guys, where are you guys missing data? Where are you guys missing science? And we start carrying out actual tagging programs, supplemental data collection, anything we can do to help fill in the gaps in their research. We then do a really good job of educating the local anglers, local guides, and honestly, on a national scale, just anybody interested in fisheries and fisheries conservation. We have a really good social media presence, a lot of advocacy, which is the next big, core principle of what we do. And we basically do a really good job of carrying out data, getting it out to guys that are just fishing dudes. Because I'll be honest, when I started 3 years ago with ASGA, I didn't know anything about they show me the graphs with all the fisheries mortality rates and, spawning ratio, spawning potential ratio, and, all this stuff. And I didn't know what I was looking at. And they do a really good job of kind of cutting it down, explaining it, and making it digestible for people like me, people like I'm sure a lot of you that, you're not used to looking at all that stuff. It gets really technical really quick, and I'm a fishing guy, I'm not a biologist. But yeah, anyway, ASGA was formed in that reason, and the reason why they got involved down here in Louisiana, again, like I was saying, is honestly, there needs to be more voice for that kind of thing down here, like actually science-driven conservation, real science-backed stuff, and that's what we specialize in. Anyways, Foundation for Progress, Sound Fishery Science. So a couple of the things that we've been doing with LDWF down here, one of the big ones this past year was we got them to adopt the Got One app, which none of y'all, well, some of y'all might have heard of it, but it's actually a really cool deal. And what it is it's just like a fishing log on your phone. But what's really cool is how streamlined it is. And we actually worked with LDWF to get it to where, like, if I catch a fish and I take a picture of the fish, it records the location, which only I can see, nobody else can see that. But at the same time recording that location, it records the weather, the water temperature in that location, the tide in that location, the salinity of the water in that location, generally speaking, of course, and what the tide was doing, the wind direction, all that information, and it logs it for you. So it's pretty cool. You can just go back and say, yesterday I caught 3 redfish on fly. And I can look and see where I caught them, the time of day, the tide, and it just automates a fish log for you, which is just as a personal tool, pretty cool. Like, I never had the patience to like keep a fish log, but if you actually do it on your phone and it's automated like that, it's actually pretty cool. And what's really neat is like, it'll like literally go back, like I just got my year in like summary, because I've been using it for a year, and it'll tell me like on a, quarter moon with the falling tide at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in these months, this was your best fishing time for redfish. This was your best fishing time for whatever. So it's actually like really interesting when it aggregates the data up like that, and you can really start to, see some cool stuff. So that is on the App Store if you want it. It's free. It's just pretty cool. But the cool thing is we got with LDWF and we were like, all right, guys, this can help y'all with your stock assessment, because basically what it does is any one of you, myself, you can become a citizen scientist with this kind of stuff, which is when you take that picture, there is a prompt and it says, do you want to share this fish with state biologists? If you click yes, it sends it a very vague, like I think it's a 5-mile radius. So basically the basin of water you're fishing in, location, to the state biologist with all that information, the length that you recorded, et cetera, and it logs it into a database for them, which they can start to supplement some of their stock assessment stuff with. So it's pretty cool, like first step with LDWF for like actively contributing to their body of work. And it actually really gives us, as like anybody participating in this as a community, like a seat at the table. Because not only are we like participating in the conversation when it comes to conservation, but we're actively adding to it. So it's pretty cool, and we're super pumped. Actually, like when we got with LDWF with it, they were like, yeah, we'll do it, but you have to have like the camera function working. So we like super rushed, got the camera function working. And actually what's crazy is like the camera on this thing is like learning how to measure the fish for you. So like pretty soon you can put like a sticker in the picture with the fish you catch, and like the app knows the size of the sticker and it'll be like, oh, that's a 36-inch redfish, or it's a 28-inch redfish, which is wild to me. But like they're actually using, this is like side note, they're actually using this in the Atlantic to identify individual great white sharks right now. So it can like, the AI that it works with can like look at the great white shark, and then like 3 years later, it can like be like, oh yeah, that was the same one. And they're working on doing that with striped bass and with redfish. So like this AI learns what each individual fish, they have a fingerprint, and it can pick up on like literally like minute scale pattern differences and be like, which to me, as a guy that fishes like 200, 250 days a year, the idea of a thing that could be like, oh, you caught this fish, 6 months ago, or you caught this fish. If it said it caught this fish yesterday, I'd get kind of depressed, honestly. I'm catching the same fish every day. But, I mean, maybe I am. But it's pretty interesting to think about like the integration. But that's one of the things that we already got done with LDW. And it's pretty cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the redfish regulation changes. That was kind of ASGA's first like big involvement with local conservation down here. So like I said, I've been a guide for quite some time. I'm from here. I've fished here my whole life. And I remember when I was a kid, I fished a lot of Leeville, Louisiana area, Boudreaux's. I heard y'all talking about that earlier. And like, to see how much that marsh has changed in my lifetime alone is just wild to me. Like, I go to a bunch of places when I fish over there now that are just open water that used to be like canal systems, and it's wild. So you guys know the change that we've seen in our coast. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the stock assessment offhand, but we lost a lot of redfish over the last 20 years. It's something like almost 50%, or I don't remember the number, but offhand. But essentially, we've lost a lot of fish, and the stock assessment that LDWF carried out showed that and raised the need for change in regulations. And this is a lot of words, I'm sorry, but you don't have to read it. That's all. But anyway, ASGA, this was kind of the first thing they jumped in with us on. And they rallied national support. We actually brought a letter to the state senate, which this is our policy director, Tony Friedrich, which anybody at the Gulf Coast Classic last year, y'all would have met him. He was the keynote speaker. Cody Rubner, who does our social media, and I think that's Kyle there sitting with him, who's a guy that works with us in other parts of the country. But anyway, they were here. They testified on behalf of local people looking for conservation in this state and ASGA. We delivered to the Senate, I think it was like a letter with 2,000 signatures and 200 different brands with like Sims, Patch, Orvis, all sorts of huge companies, basically just showing the local legislators here that this fishery means a lot to the country, not just to, a couple people, that not just to the residents of the state. I can attest to that firsthand. Probably 90% of my client base is traveling. I don't have a lot of Baton Rouge guys, or Louisiana guys in general. I probably have more than most because I used to work and live up here and stuff, but it's a big travel fishery. A lot of people come from all over the place to fish here, and a lot of people care about this fishery, and it's worth trying to protect. A testament to that is this reel you see. Actually, myself and Greg Moon, who's a buddy of mine and a guide colleague, we designed this reel with Patch as like a fundraising effort. They sold they made 200 of these, I believe it was, sold out of them overnight at like 1,300 a reel, which is wild. But we sold, I think we sold like 24 at least, shipped over to like UK and Sweden and stuff. So there's people all over the world that love and participate in our fishery. That raised like 25 grand for, actually that's how we finished the act, is what we were working on with that. But it just goes to show the national backing that this fishery has. Anyway, ASGA got involved, pumped out that reel. We were all over social media. We really put the pressure on the Wildlife Commission to essentially, what you have here is the new regulations. That was basically the bare minimum what the biologist recommended, is what we went with. Okay, we dropped it down to 4 fish. We took out the overslot that you can keep, which is good. We're happy, but it was basically like the bare minimum of what they could do. We were calling for a little bit more proactive reduction, like maybe down to a 3 fish thing. Our reason being, this puts us on basically a 30-year timeline to rebuilding where we want to get to as far as abundance in the population. If you drop down to that 3 fish limit, it's about a 13 years. So it's 17-year different for 1 fish. I don't like gambling over 30 years on a fishery forecast. I look at the weather every day on my phone for guiding, and I can't even trust it tomorrow. So 30 years seems like a long time for me. So, we got them there. We actually got it to literally the 3 days before. They went with the 3 fish recommendation that we pushed. The commission was all for it. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the way some of this works in this state, but when the Wildlife Commission approves of a regulation change, there's a 30-day time period, and the state Senate has to, if they don't say anything, it goes through. If they do say something, they can strike it down and it goes back to the drawing board. We got about 3 days away from it. It looked like we were going to get it, and then we did. The state Senate got involved. We had to go up to the state capitol, testify, and they struck it down anyway. even with our valiant effort, they struck it down. But we went back to the drawing board, we got the 4 fish, but it just goes to show how quickly, like, I mean, literally, I remember ASGA got involved and like hit the ground running with this. And we almost got a huge victory for conservation in the state, and still ended up getting a victory for sure, but really activated a lot of people around here as far as looking for more proactive management. Go ahead.
So what was it before 4?
It was 5. So we dropped it down by 1. And like I said, they took out the overslot and they adjusted the slot a little bit too. And, you know, the big thing there is not keeping those bull reds is a big deal, because like a redfish will grow over 5 years really quickly. And then after that, they really slow down. So like my clients are all looking for like those 30-pound fish, right? That's like a 20, 30-year-old fish. And when you're killing those on a daily basis, that's pretty impactful to the fishery. Not to mention, I'll talk about it a little bit later here, when we have a 200-year unprecedented winter storm that knocks things out. The other thing is hurricanes can just like mess up a spawning year. Like you can just have a bad year and redfish don't spawn too well because we get bad hurricanes at the wrong times or whatever. So, you know, getting that bull redfish taken out was nice. We really would have liked to see a 3 fish limit there.
What was the opposition? Like, what was the argument not to go through?
Well, there was a lot of, so a big reason why, if I'm being completely honest, why I'm speaking about a lot of this today is to raise local awareness to this stuff, because basically what happened is a lot of local fishermen got a lot of local fishermen and a lot of catch and keep guides are convinced that if we lower our limits too much, people are going to stop fishing and they're going to stop coming here to fish, because you can keep more fish here than pretty much anywhere in the Gulf. And they're convinced that if we would have dropped down to 3, that all of their business would have gone away and they would, you know, be run out of house and home, which is a shame. We actually did like a whole, we actually had like a economist from Mississippi State run an entire report showing that catch and release oriented guides in this state raise more money per guide and local expenditures than a medium-sized state park does for Louisiana. It was something like 600,000, something like that. But like the catch and like a lot of people that travel to come fish here don't really care if they can keep 3 fish, 5 fish, 4 fish. Like they just want to come catch fish. And so, you know, our thing was, let's be a little bit safer. But that was basically the opposition. And the other thing you have, which is another thing that's unfortunate, is you just have people getting up there and basically saying all this science is wrong. I see plenty of fish when I go, you know, like where I fished the other day, I caught 20 fish, so there must be plenty of redfish, and your report's, you know, full of crap. And I'm like, man, you know, I wish I could go down to the beach and look at one speck of sand and be like, ah, the beach is healthy. There's no trash. This one speck of sand is clean. So it's like, you know.
Another question.
Yes.
What effect does bow hunting have?
So that's, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Bow fishing, here's the thing about bow fishing. It's destructive to the marsh for sure. You know, they're ripping around in there. I mean, where I was fishing literally yesterday, and my client from, I think he was from Chicago, was like looking down at prop scars and he's like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, that's, and I had to go into the whole, he's like, that sounds awful. Like that they're killing these things that I'm like paying you, you know, $800 a day to pull me around and take a picture of after I catch one. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty bad. So like where I fish, there's bow fishing scars, prop scars everywhere. So it's destructive to the marsh, first of all. And it is impactful. Obviously, there's no catch and release bow fishing. When they invent that, that'd be pretty cool, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. But it's not good. The argument against it is that there's really not a lot of guys doing it, but it is pretty impactful. They actually, so wildlife fisheries is actively starting to like get a handle on how many bow fishermen there actually are. So I think like right now, if you want to bow fish, you got to get a permit. And so they can kind of start to see, the problem is not everybody's going to get a permit, and they don't have a lot of wildlife agents out there in the middle of the night looking for those guys. So, you know, they're in the process of gauging the extent of the impact. It's not good. The other issue is that it's not good for the duck hunters either. That runs those ducks all night. It blows up their marsh. There's a lot of, I know the, parts of the Biloxi Marsh had some huge outcry with the duck hunters this year about just the bow fishermen tearing everything up and moving their ducks around and all that. I mean, I can tell you, I've fished yellow crow for a long time, and I'll go in a pond. Sometimes you can tell the boat guys were in there the night before, because like, I'm like, from here to you, typically a redfish from here to you. If my client can make this cast, I'm like, you're a sniper. Like, that's a long cast for redfish. You see what I'm saying? I'm not even asking people to do that a lot. But when they've been bow fished that long, they're like, those fish are feeling that boat and they're out of there. So you can tell they get real aware when they've been getting chased around all night. So it's had its impact for sure. But
A lot of kill that's out of the slot as well.
what's that?
There's a lot of kill that's out of the slot as well.
Exactly, yeah, you know, yeah, I mean, I look at redfish all day and I can't always tell you which one's in the freaking slot in broad daylight. So I don't know how they do it in the middle of the night, shining the light, stunning them and shooting them in like 3 seconds. That's impressive if they get it right every time. So you're right. I mean, there was just to say, just on that topic, Ketch, you might have been at the meeting where there was a guy there that was a bow fishing guide, and he literally was like, man, if y'all reduce this slot anymore, I'm just gonna be killing all these fish illegally, and I'm just gonna keep on doing it. And we're like, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, if you drop that slot anymore, I'm just gonna have to kill all these fish illegally. It's like, well, you could just not shoot them, but like, yeah, go shoot the 1,000 gar that are out there every night. I don't know, you know, whatever. But yeah, so the bow fishing thing is just another. I'll just say this, and I'm getting a little bit off, but I like the question. In this entire conservation saga, the thing to remember is recreational harvesting of redfish is by far and away the #1 killer of redfish. People going out there and killing 5 fish, now 4 fish a day, every single day, is killing more than pogie boats. It's killing more than bow fishing. It's killing more than habitat loss. All of those are problems, and we do, like, we are working our butts off to try to fix those where we can. But the reality is, you know, the pogie boat issue is a massive industry fight. That's not easy. You're going up against some big time players. I don't know how we fix the marsh, and I don't think anybody does. I mean, we'd have to blow up the levees and flood New Orleans out to get the marsh to start regenerating like it did before we ever showed up here as as humans. So like, those are huge, big, giant, you know, I'll probably be dead before we figure out any of that stuff. I'm probably one of the youngest guys here. So, you know, but like bow fishing, we can do something about that. Recreational limits, we can do something about that. So those are things that, like, as an association, like, we really target that, because we can actually affect that. And what's cool is, if you, like I was saying, if you just drop this thing down, if everybody gets a little bit more proactive and just risk adverse, really is what it comes down to. Like, I don't wanna, when my kids are old enough to fish, and you know, God forbid if one of them wants to be a redfish guide like their dad, I want there to be fish around. And if we do this right, there actually probably will be some fish around, and it'll still be pretty good. So it's like, those are the things we shoot for. I mean, if the ice caps melt, we all go underwater, we're screwed. So yeah, we're all done for. I'll be guiding for redfish where Ketch lives now. So it's like, so yeah. Where we are now, this is kind of current events. I wasn't even planning on, I mean, I've been planning to talk here for like a while, and then this happened. I was like, I guess I'll be talking about the fish kill of this thing. So, snowpocalypse. I got 9 inches of snow at my house in Vero, Louisiana, which that is south of Chalmette in St. Bernard Parish, 20 minutes from Hopedale. And I got 9 inches of snow. I've never seen more than like 3 on the ground in my lifetime. So that was insane. I went down to the Lake Bourne, marsh right there. I could walk there from my house. And it was insane. I mean, the marsh was freezing over, like full freeze over. I've been reading some of the reports, but it was full freeze over in that marsh. Like snow up to here, I felt like I was in Montana or something. It was wild. So it was crazy. That area, South Louisiana and like Southeast Louisiana, St. Bernard Parish, we got hammered. I mean, I had snow on the ground for days. And we saw some fish kills. We, as an association, ASGA, got out ahead of it. Myself, Ty Hibbs, and actually got in contact with some local kayaking guys that were super cooperative, shared a bunch of stuff they've seen. It sounds like that Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club did a minimalist tournament or something, and it was like 80 something boats and like 18 or 14 people caught fish or something. They were all, for fly fishing tournaments, that's not that bad. I'm like, but for them, they were like, oh, it's good. So, we got in touch with local anglers, with local guides. We collected a lot of information. We speak with Jason Adrians, Chris Sheepley directly. We've formed a pretty good relationship with those are the state biologists for LWF. We formed a pretty good relationship with them. We were sending them videos, sending them pictures. It seems like it's varying degrees of severity around the state, but we are, as an association, we're getting the word out because I was told, like, I literally was like at the boat ramp, having other guides come up to me being like, don't talk about this. Like, don't say anything about these fish kills. And that's kind of like the scary thing, like standing up here, talking about this, like I am a guide. That's how I put food on the table, is like every time I stand up here and admit this and talk about this, I'm like actively, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna go fishing, there's no fish left. I've never seen that being a problem yet. I find that people actually appreciate the honesty, but I was at the boat ramp and had other guides literally like, don't talk about this. We don't want clients to get spooked and leave. And those are the things that are hamstringing us as a angling community, is not confronting the truth, which is like, we did lose fish. Now, I'm not gonna say we lost them all. There's still fish, obviously, and some areas did fare pretty okay, but some areas got hit pretty hard. What I'm really excited about what ASGA is doing is they provide a unifying banner for people like me and anybody that's interested in conservation to really get in front of like LDWF and present a well scripted, well said, well thought out report. And we have access to these biologists. And so basically we're in there saying, look, a bunch died. We're not going to sit here with our pants on fire and say we're all doomed, but maybe, and we've already said this. Ty was just at the meeting last week. I'm going to be at the meeting this week. We're advocating for like a real short-term look at limit reductions, like with a super short sunset. So I was just on the phone with a fisheries manager in North Carolina and South Carolina. When they have this happen, if there's like, basically, I think this is just interesting. When they report fish kills to their Department of Natural Resources or whatever, Department of Fisheries, if a certain amount of fish kills get confirmed, they just go into an automatic like closure. Like, you can't keep fish till June 1st. And they've been doing that. And it's shown really good success of just giving those fish a brief window of like, you're not catching them, and then they can kind of gather some information, see if they need to extend that, see if they can open it back up. And it's been really successful. I'm not about to think that we can just close down the fishery. That would be like, I think people would expect plagues to start hitting the state if we did that. So we're not asking for that, but I'm very much hoping we can maybe see like in certain majorly effective areas, maybe dropping the limit to, 3 fish, 2 fish for, because like a big thing I'm just worried about is like, when we're doing these like stock assessment projections, everybody's like, well, if the hurricanes are gonna be bad, then it's like bad roll of the dice for these things. Well, this isn't factored in, well, it was factored into it, like, kind of, but this is unprecedented stuff. So if we have a bad hurricane season on top of this, we're gonna get double whammy this year, and that's when you start really talking about, I mean, the reality is, like, trout grow fast, but in some places you lost an entire generation of trout. I mean, that's just what happened. Redfish, it's not too much different than that. Like in certain areas, we dropped a year class of redfish over that freeze, like they're gone. And we kind of got to see what's going. So we're hoping that we can get some traction within the commission with maybe looking at some short-term, very short sunset, limit reductions just to let the fishery breathe for a minute before we pound it all summer. So we'll see. But that's kind of where we're at with the fish kill, Scott. So this is just some cool stuff about what ASGA is doing in the future, which is the Jack project. So one of the things that ASGA does is that they get involved with like weird stuff sometimes as far as like fish. So they like sheep's head, on the East Coast, they do a lot of work with false albacore, which typically is not something people go to a fishery to fish for. But if you're out there and the albacore are busting bait and you're catching them, it's really cool. So like ASGA can get involved with a fish like that. It's not a super big ticket, like, redfish down here, speckled trout down here is like, everybody shows up for the meetings when we talk about that because everybody cares about those fish. Jacks, not so much. So as a guide, I fish for jacks from about June, July, all the way till October, November. It makes up a huge part of my business now. Like I said, I've been doing it for about a decade. When I started, I would fish October, November, December, January, February, March, just about every single day I could get on the water. That's when I made all my money. Then if I fished 1 to 4 days and the rest of the year, a month, I was doing pretty good. Like that was my books. These days I fish every single day through the summer. And actually when all the out-of-state guys start showing up in like October, I kind of slow down a little bit because the summer has just become a go-to time for my clients. I've pushed because the more consistent weather and because of jacks. They eat top water, they get big as hell. I mean, they'll break your 10 weight like it's nothing. I mean, I make people fish 12s. I've had a guy hook him on an 8. It did not end well for him. I actually like, I used to be a ambassador for TNT, and like they signed me on like right before my jack season, and I think they instantly hated me because I broke like 6 rods in a week on jacks, and they're like, what the hell are you doing down there? Literally was on the phone with one of their guys, and they're like, well, I don't even know if your guys know how to use a rod. I'm like, no, like, that's not happening. It's just jacks. So they're bruisers. I mean, they're awesome. They're probably right up there with redfish for me as far as a favorite fish goes. And there's literally like no regulations on them right now. So, I every once in a while will get followed by a conventional guy when I go jack fishing with my clients because I guide out of a bay boat sometimes. And they think I'm like speckled trout fishing with a popping cork because I'm in a bay boat. So they follow me out and then they're like, oh, is this where the trout are at? I'm like, oh no. Like, your little trout swim rod's about to get abused. And like you quickly just hear the whining until the line runs out. But had that happen a few times, but when they do manage to land them, sometimes they're like keeping them and I'm like, man, what are you doing? And it's a shame because like, again, I get paid handsomely to take people out chasing these things that like, 8 years ago, that wasn't even on the radar. 8 years ago, everybody was coming down here like fall, winter, big redfish in Louisiana. That's what we want. That's what we want. Now it's like Jack Crevalle, let's go do that. sheep's head. I mean, you'd be amazed. Like, okay. I think sheep's head are cool, but I'll be honest, I don't really get the whole thing about it. But like, some of these clients, they just love it. They just think it's the coolest thing in the world. I hate them. I mean, like, I have to throw out like 40 of them for one of them to eat. You do everything right like 40 times and none of them eat, then one of them will like, I had one like, the flies hung in the grass on the bank and he like swims up and pulls it out of the grass. And it's like, what the hell is that thing? But it's just sheep's head. But people love them. But so all to say, what I'm getting at is like, you don't realize when, you got a guy that comes down from like Illinois who's used to catching like, whatever. He catches like a sheep's head this big and it's like taking him into the backing and he's like, oh, I've got a live one. Like, it's the biggest thing he's ever hooked on the fly rod. So it's like all of our fish are so, important to the fishery, and especially like people like me that make a living off of it. But the jack is like the pinnacle of that, because down here, a lot of people turn their nose up at them, but our clients, they literally think it's the coolest thing. And one of the recent F3Ts, I don't know if I saw it, I don't know if it's gonna be in one, but there's like a big jack video, like, let me just say this. I always talk about this. I'm getting way off topic, so sorry, but fish stories are fun. I was out at Curlew Island one time with a guy that was coming back home from the Seychelles. That was a client of mine. So Christmas Island, GT, Giant Trevally. That's like, if you don't know, that's literally like a $24,000 trip for a week of fishing. That's like, it's like serious, tech billionaires only. But anyway, this guy goes and like had a decent trip or whatever, and he stopped in New Orleans to fish with me for a couple of days. We went out to Curlew Island, and we're wade fishing, and like some jacks start rolling in, and he hooks into a jack while we're out there wade fishing. And I mean, it was like a 20-something pound jack, and he's like screaming and laughing, just hysterically laughing. And I'm standing there next to him, like, what's so funny? Like, why is this so funny to you? And he's like, I just spent so much damn money chasing this stupid thing out somewhere in the Indian Ocean. He's like, no, let me go back. He's like, this is just as good. So it's like, again, we've got stuff like that in our backyards essentially, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, all that to say, I got so far off topic on that, but all that to say, ASGA is leading a jack project across the Gulf of Mexico, starting in the Keys, going all the way up through here to Texas, where local anglers and guides like myself were going to be catching and putting sonographic tags in the jacks that actively track where they're going. Like basically, like the technology we're getting to with this is like, I could get one of you, like this is literally the conversation we've been having, which to me is just mind blowing. You could go fishing with me. You could sponsor a jack tag. This is how we might do this. So you sponsor the jack tag. So you buy access to the tag that we put in the fish, and you can log on to a website and see where your jack went after you caught it. So you could be like, oh, my jack's in, Rockport now, or my jack went out to the Keys. So I mean, like, I think that's pretty cool. Like, a way to like get people participating in conservation with technology. But anyway, all that to say, so we're going to be doing tagging. We're going to be doing fin clips. So cut the part of the fin off. We have a scientist analyze it. They can get DNA out of that. They can actually tell you exactly where that jack was spawned based off that stuff now. Once they get a big enough sample size, they can literally look at the DNA and be like, oh, this one was, wherever. So we can start to figure out where they're done. But I'm going to play a quick little video. This is off the East Coast, and this is albacore, but this is what it'll look like once we build this up with the jacks. So you can see, like, you can actively see where they're going. All those little black triangles are satellite arrays, like on buoys and stuff, and they pick up whenever the fish goes by. So you can see where the fish goes, you can see what it does, and like over a course of time, you can build basically a map of their migration. which is really interesting. Like LDWF, we were telling them about this. They're like, yeah, we don't know anything about what these fish are doing. Like, we'd love to figure out more. And like, if there's, again, there's a legitimate fishery for these things. So like, how can we help protect them? Because, I will say this, like the pogie boat conversations, I see dead redfish from pogie boats, but you know what I see a lot of is dead jacks. You get out there and there's dead jacks all over the place from those pogie boats because they're really running and gunning those menhaden schools out there big time. I've had the pogie boats just about run me over chasing those jacks. I mean, we're playing like whale wars out there. I'm always telling my clients, whale wars out there. Chasing the jacks.
So, hey, Bailey?
Yes.
So to have that, say, in the Gulf, it would rely upon a network of those buoys.
Yep.
And so that's the big obstacle, I bet.
Well, we do have some of that in place. I think, Southern Mississippi has, some of that in place, the USM or whatever. Mississippi State, the Oceanography Department or whatever has some of that. So there is some of it in place. And basically what we're doing is like a big data sharing thing. These universities will get involved and let you use the arrays, so long as you are sharing the data with them. So, I think we've already looked into all that. I'm pretty sure we're good to go with it, but, it definitely could be an obstacle, like if there's nothing out there. Luckily out here, we have like tons of old oil rig, wellhead platforms and stuff. So if we need to stick a few out there, if we can get the people to do it, we have the spots to put it in. So, but I think we're pretty good with that. I'm like blanking, but I think it's Southern Miss really has like a pretty robust fisheries research and oceanography team, and they do a lot of good stuff. And we've been talking to them, and Ben Meadows, who works with I think it's Mississippi State, he's the one that did that economic impact report with us. And we've got some good ends with those guys. So yeah, local outreach, a big part of kind of where we are in the conservation arena and saga in this state is local support. We need more local fishermen talking about this, showing up at the meetings, and honestly talking to like legislators here. Because like when we had that 4 fish debacle with the redfish go down, I talked to a lot of state legislators, and every single one of them was like, well, this sounds good, but none of my constituents are talking to me about it. And so that was kind of like the common theme. So the more that we have local people that are understanding, where we're at and speaking out about this, and the more reason these guys have to enact some change. And so getting more and more people kind of under the unified banner that is American Saltwater Guides Association, ASGA, has kind of been like, that's like my 2025 goal. Because they've really done a lot for us in this state, like trying to push the envelope with conservation, and we just need more local people. So this is a screen capture of the website, which I definitely recommend you check it out because they talk about everything I've been talking about. You can join for free. You get a newsletter, event notifications, and they do a really good job of just having a lot of educational resources on the website. They do a podcast. I think it's like one of the top 5 podcasts in outdoor fishery stuff, or fishery science. It's some specific category, but we're ranked top. Every once in a while I'm on there. So if you like my jokes, I'm on there cracking jokes sometimes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They've got a really cool network and a really cool community. And honestly, like as somebody that's lived in this state my whole life and kind of got a little bit, disenchanted with any kind of conservation in the state, ASGA was a really nice fresh breath of real deal stuff going on. And what's really cool is like the science participation stuff. Like I said, I'm not joking. I mean, AI is fixing to take over the world, so we have that coming. But like you can buy your own fish tag and log in and see where it is. I mean, it's pretty cool. So like, I think that's neat, but, yeah. So,
Where are they headquartered?
they're in the New England area, Northeast. They started as like striped bass was their first flagship species. Striped bass on the Atlantic coastline is just a disaster with conservation. Like I hear what they're dealing with over there, and it's like, I hope we never get to that point. Because they're talking about like moratoriums and stuff, and, you know, I just hope we don't get to that point, honestly, but. Yeah, last year, we did a symposium, which was a really cool event. We talked a lot about what we're doing, in the state, what we are planning on doing in the state. We had LDW up there, so Jason was there. So if you ever wanted to talk to the state biologist, it's a good place to confront them. Neutral site, but, they're actually really cool guys. But we did that. We're gonna be at the Dirty Carp this year. Myself and Tony, will be fishing it. So if you know about the Dirty Carp or are interested in any kind of local stuff, like, that's really our bag. We were doing the sheepy tournament, but that kind of turned into like Rich Guy Club, tournament, like, all these out-of-state dudes from other places with skiffs coming down and fishing it. So we're trying to do more local focused events. And actually, we'll probably be doing a lot more like local stuff. I think we've been talking to the Orvis store here about doing some local stuff, maybe getting involved with some stuff with Rally Cap and all that. Just trying to build up a local presence, because honestly, I think we can use it. So, yeah, any other questions? Feel free to hit me up or ask me, you know, before I leave, but
Is that something that would fit into our race program?
yeah, I mean, you know, I would love to, any kind of involvement you guys would want. I mean, I live, you know, 2 hours away, but I don't mind coming and doing events or being around. Like I said, I know a lot of you guys from when I used to live and work up there, so it's cool for me to be around, and we're looking to get just more local people, so totally, if we can make it work.
Yeah, March 8th, mark your calendar if you could.
Yeah, I'll definitely
Show
see
up.
if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I was making a note of that when you were talking about it.
Awesome.
But yeah, and if you have any questions about fishing or like my guiding business too, feel free to ask. I kind of got sucked in. This is a lot more pertinent to talk about. I don't have cards. I don't know. I didn't come here to promote myself. But if you want my information, I can give you my card on my phone and all that stuff too. I fish year round down here. And yeah, if you want to get out, I can get you out. Mhm.
You chased triple tail.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that before the meeting. I do a good amount of triple tail fishing in the summer. It's really kind of become like a on the way fish for me. So like I cover, you know, jack fishing, it's a lot of looking. I have to like always give my clients like the briefing. I'm like, all right. Cause like some of these clients, man, I mean, good Lord. You never know what you're gonna get. But some of these clients, like, here, guys, I'm like telling them, okay, listen, you wanna go jack fishing, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we're gonna spend a lot of time driving. The motor's gonna be on, but we're fishing. Like, just because I'm not pulling around doesn't mean we're not fishing. Jack should just drive, look for the birds, look for blow-ups. And I'm like, we're driving. So with the triple tail, they're great, because like, while I'm looking for jacks, I'm just any crab pot, buoy, or anything, I'm stopping and checking it and looking. So, yeah, but they're a cool fish. I mean, I've never caught like a super big one. I've had a few shots at some pretty nice ones, but you know.
I asked because that's a hot topic for conservation.
Yeah.
We're involved with Gulf Council with the Triple Tail Classic
Mhm.
in July. Been talked about, and works with the Southerners to do research and tagging on Triple Tail. So they're looking at initiating limits for Triple Tail this year.
Well, I think that'd be a great thing for us to jump on here, because I mean, I'm sure you've seen, and triple tail have definitely become a bit of a hot fish as far as people fishing for them. I remember, I don't remember where I saw it, but I was watching something, and like some local show had like a whole thing on it a few years ago. And then sure enough, like every issue of Louisiana Sportsman after that, it's got like the triple tail article. And I'm like, God, these things are getting, there's not gonna be any left. So like, I feel like 6, 7 years ago, I was seeing a lot more like bigger ones, where now a lot of the triple tails I see are like that big, which again, I'm just one guy, so who knows, but it does seem like.
Do you think that's due to them being like an edible fish?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
people, that's
right.
like the fish to
Right.
eat.
Well, that's what Bailey and I were talking about this before his presentation. We were talking just about that subject, because in Bay St. Louis, where we go out from, the fish restaurants and local catch places are serving triple tail as the top end fish on the menu.
Oh, yeah,
And so people are figuring out, well, if that's worth me paying $30 for a dinner, the next one I catch, I'm gonna keep it. So all the guys I fish with out there are now keeping triple tail, whereas before it was just a, catch and release.
oh, yeah, I'm even guilty.
Or
of
they
that.
didn't even look for them. They just were passing by, because you look for structure at 30 miles an hour, you can see it.
Oh, man, it's an
You can
efficient.
blow right by it and then stop and, try to catch it.
It's an
Keep
efficient
going.
fish, for sure. I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, we could do this while we do anything. Like, I'm just driving the motor around, like, oh, there's one, turn around, like whipping it
But
around.
it's a conversation now. All right, let's go with that, because it's,
Or if it's 1,000 degrees, you can just keep the boat running. Don't get hot.
but they're not fly fish. They're,
Oh, yeah, no,
These
yeah.
guys are, definitely using terminal tackle.
Oh, yeah. I've been seeing more and more people, out there fishing them with conventional, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, they're a great sight fishing fish because of how they hang up high in the water column and get on structure. I mean, they're excellent for. The only thing about them is like, you gotta find a fly that's like, the sink rate's so weird, because like, everyone, you'll find the ones that'll just eat anything you throw on them, and those are the good ones. But like, a lot of them, you gotta have one that just barely kind of like almost suspends and hangs for them. And if it goes too deep, they follow it down into the abyss, and then you're blind fishing, just hoping you hook up. But yeah, they're fun. I definitely enjoy it.
Speaking of flies, can we go to your website and get a visual sighting of some of the flies you use?
So, no. No, I don't mind sharing that at all, but it's funny you asked that, because I mean, literally, a couple days ago, I was like in my boat, like all like legs hanging out. My wife rolled up, she's like, what are you doing? And like, I've got like 4 different flies in my hands, and I'm trying to take pictures of it. I'm like, my client's trying to tie flies, and I'm like trying to compare them all. So I probably should put that in there, but like, I'll be honest with you, redfish flies, I'm like the most like simple caveman about it. I used to tie a ton and be super technical with my redfish flies. Now it's like, give me a light, give me a dark, give me a white color, a dark color, then give me a heavy, give me a lightweight, and then like a medium. That's all I need. I mean, really, 3 to 4 flies is fine with me. I'm more picky about the hook, is my big one. If you would have talked to me, 2 years ago, I would have been telling you jig hook, use the jig hook. Cause like, I have all these guys that trout set everything that moves. Like, I don't even tell my client the fish ate anymore. I just keep telling them to strip. Cause if I say he ate, they just trout set every time. So I'm like, just keep stripping, always. But, I used to be like, the jig hook seemed like it hooked them better when they didn't get a good hook set for whatever reason. I was just getting a lot of better hookups, but lately I feel like the jig hooks bend a little bit better. So like, if you put a jig hook on a jack, that thing's done for. Like, you're not catching that fish. I'll then straighten that thing out. I don't care how heavy it is, it's straight. So I'm back to the straight hook, back to my straight hook truther now. So there you go.
All right, well, I think we gotta be out of here in about 5 minutes, so thank you, Bailey, appreciate it. You can always hang out in the parking lot as long as you want, they can't make it.